Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is episode 7 of Business Jam. I can't believe we've been doing this since January, and I know it's cheesy, but I have to do this. It's the 4th of May, so May the 4th be with you. See, there it's done now. So, well, welcome. One little bit of housekeeping. Some people may be watching on YouTube, some people may be watching on LinkedIn, and some on Facebook. And if you are watching on Facebook and you do want to ask a question or make a comment, can I ask you please to go to this URL? And it just means that if you make a comment, instead of saying Facebook user, it will say your name so we know who you are. So that's all I want to say for that. So, without further ado, let us introduce our guest for today. So, our guest for today is founder and managing director of VeinTrain. Previously to that, she trained as a nurse, has a background in emergency nursing, which sounds very drastic, and developed a clinical skill service for Imperial College School of Medicine before moving north to Nottingham, which is a wise move, I must say. It's much nicer further north. And her clinical skills are now used by Nottingham Medical School. And in 2007, she founded VeinTrain. So let's hear a little more about VeinTrain and our guest for today, Sarah Phillips. Hello.
Hello, Derek. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I hope you didn't mind the May the 4th be with you too much.
Yeah, I like that. I saw some little Lego this morning. Thought that was good.
Indeed. So, how did you get from doing nursing stuff, he says in quotes, to founding a company and doing things with that? I don't know about all over the world, but I know you've been doing an awful lot in the Middle East.
Yeah. I mean, I think they call me the Vayne lady. People out there, I get people tap the back of the hand. Oh, so that's quite
it's
nice.
better than tapping the nose, I suppose.
Yeah, it was quite nice. I've got the distributor out there, and she said everybody knows who you are. I was like, well, that's great. Make sure they buy some stuff. So yeah, so it's good to have. I think the Middle East is particularly. I'm very interested in it, and I've been out there a lot, and it's certainly an area of growth, and they pioneer forward, and they're into innovation, and I think that's one of the main reasons I chose it as an area, target area. It's beautiful as well.
But how did you get from nursing to setting up a company? What was the thing that either forced you out of nursing or drew you towards setting up a company?
Well, there were a few things really. So first of all, it was Chelsea and Westminster I set the skills lab up, but the Imperial College med students came and nurses. So that was there. And then I teach at the med school as well at the moment in Nottingham to keep my hand in and to listen to all the enthusiasms from medical students who they're just brilliant and they fill me with energy and drive forward. So just moved around. I'm assuming you're still there, Derek.
Oh yes, I'm still here. It's just that I have a magic mouse and I can make you appear live to our guests.
Can we do that in person, just in case the med students get a bit cheeky? Or I'm next in now. Thank you very much. Okay, so I was at Chelsea and Westminster, and it was really that the nurses, quite a large number of skills there, skilled nurses and trained nurses. And I said to the director of nursing on a staff night out, and you don't say to these people very easily and lightheartedly, and it was a Christmas night out, and I said, there's no reason why the nurses over there, we were just across the road, are not doing these skills really. Well, that was it. The next morning, I was in the office, and I thought, so I went round to Therese's office, and she said, right, how are you going to do it? Come and tell me at 5. So I went off. And I came back a bit, and then she said, right, I need more clarity. So, I've sort of plastered the walls in very creatively in Chelsea and Westminster in corporate nursing and plastered the walls with how I was going to do it. And I needed 2 staff and I got 1, as you do. So I knew everyone's name. So it went from 40% competency to 98%, but it was hard work. It was expensive. It was a lot of supervision, a lot of time. It was hard to get that. We had to give them a lot of time, and we had to allocate and do logistics. So it's like, wow, this is the most commonly performed skill in healthcare. We know it's been done badly without training, and where people aren't really sure what they're doing. There's 69% failure rate at the moment across the world. So imagine a car company that had 3 of its wheels falling off, because that's how important cannulas are.
I know. I've been in hospital. I know.
But if we're like, oh well, it just happens, it doesn't need to happen. So it really doesn't. The way we I can't go on YouTube very easily without feeling a little bit poorly. See, especially when someone's got millions of followers, and I'm thinking, oh no. So everyone's copying that. Millions of people are copying that. So yeah. So I did that, and then tried to keep trying to figure out how to make things better. Did a national competency program with some colleagues. We took a good year to build that, and it's still going now, 100,000 nearly in use. And then wrote a book. So I can't seem to get out of the world of Vayne. So the way to do it was to make a Vayne.
Well, as you would. Actually, just before you describe the product, when you're talking about failures, what counts as a failure? Somebody walking away from a patient, or just failing one insertion of a needle?
So insertion sites, the research. So we knew this stuff, but Australia, they've been just doing a brilliant job for us. So they've done so much research. When they walk into a conference now, we all stand up and clap. So they've been, for our world, our Vayne world people, they've been doing all the research and showing what we know. So they've got the 69% failure rate, as in that's how long it is expected to stay in. So it's supposed to stay in for a certain amount of time, and it doesn't. And that's within a reasonable amount of time as well, because they're licensed for 30 days, these things, but we know they won't last that long as short cannulas. And then the 35%, up to 35% is insertion. So we can definitely get insertion rates up. So the times you get stuck with a needle, sort that out, reduce that down, and then making them last longer when they're in. So does that help? Does that answer? Yes, so there's a 35% insertion rate. Our wonderful researchers in Australia have been doing loads of work. So as I was saying, they get a standing ovation when they walk in the room because it's so powerful. So they, the 69% is how long it can. We've got this figure from, I think it was Gillian, but one of the big researchers out there's got, it's all solid, good research, randomized trials and things. So it's solid. It's what we know is happening. We know it's happening. But we've now got research to back it up, which is great, and some cost statistics. So it's about £30 to put a cannula in. So not only have we got 69% failing, it's costing a fortune. And these Vaynes that we do, so we can get, we could train somebody up for the same, one person, we can train them up for the whole career. They might put 4 in a week. We can train them up for the whole career in a couple of hours and a bit of practical training. And then they're done. So we don't have this every time they go near a cannula, there's £29 down the drain.
Indeed. So what actually is VeinTrain? What is your Vayne in a box? Well, I've just, I suppose, given it away a bit. It's a Vayne in a box. Well,
it is. Basically, it's flat packed, because my puzzle was, how do we get this out there? Because it's this problem everywhere. I knew, because I was, you don't get people from 40% competency to 98% at 500 of them. And I knew all the names when they were doing it as well. You don't do that. And years, like this is 20 years ago, keep going and watching needles, people putting needles into veins without knowing why. So it's performance, precision, skill. They do vary. Humans will do very similar mistakes. So it's, how do we get that mass out there? So it's flat packed. See if I've got one here. There's one. So it's really small.
Yeah, wow.
Hello. And we pop it up. And it's it's perfect size. We've got the size right. It holds all the bits. It's got a QR on for the videos. So there's 6 videos included. And if they need more, there's e-learning. They may have their own training. So it works like that. So it's really to get this. This is really a coaching. It gives us a simulator to give to people. And we send out the equipment in the post and what have you through the courier system or the mail system.
How have people taken to it? Or rather, okay, there's two types of people there. One is the people who are doing the training, and the other one is their superiors. I mean, I imagine that there's two different problems there. Who takes to it, and who needs persuading?
Well, usually people, I mean, there's some great footage on my website on VeinTrain.co.uk, and it shows some feedback on there. And I love it because they say, "Oh, I just thought it was never going to work." I thought it'd be rubbish. Some of them they're really brutal. I thought it was going to be rubbish, and actually, it's brilliant. So there's loads. It's one of those when you're bringing in change, and I brought change in at Chelsea and different organisations. When you're bringing in change, it's never going to be smooth. You're going to get a lot of resistance, and often it's paternalism. So you often get people further along go, that won't work. So anaesthetists will think, well, what is this? That's no good. You know, a couple of doctors I was doing a pitch in at, and one of them was saying, "Oh, I can get a cannula in an arm." I thought, in a shoulder. And I thought, well, maybe be using a different line than using a cannula. But so you've got this, and don't need that. So I often say that for the resistance, because I've got a master's in organisation system psychodynamics, and that helps. And I'm sure
Probably.
I think that helped me recover from bringing in change to an organisation, and I tutor for the Tabby as well. So it all sort of helps because actually it's made of cardboard, and therefore if someone flings it at me, it doesn't hurt. Get that rubbish out of here, because it would feel
I like
so
that
strange.
idea. I like that idea. I shall have to think about making things in cardboard. Yeah, that's good. But I don't know why it just flashed through my head because I've been preparing some slides with the the old innovation adoption curve in it.
Oh yes.
And there's always a place where the chasm is, and it's usually put in the wrong place. But what sort of percentage of people do you think you actually had to persuade before the rest just came sort of tumbling along afterwards?
Well, we could look back to 2012. So we've been using phone versions of this for years, but we didn't have the money or we didn't have it. It wasn't here yet until about 2015, I think. The flat pack came 16, and it came and it sort of came in a meeting, an innovation meeting. So 2012, we trained NHS Direct remotely. All of them 200. So that's a long time, to 2012 to 2018. It was, to get people, no, try this. No. Now we'd use it in class, but they wouldn't use it remotely at all. Couldn't get even big, innovative organisations were just not up for online learning. So of course the pandemic.
Has the pandemic helped? I would have thought so.
In some ways, it crippled my business for a little while because it was like all my classrooms shut without warning. So I was like cat and steel going, whoa, because our bread and butter is seeing people in rooms and supervising. And this innovation was never meant to, it was meant to just go along until we got the big wins and stuff. And that's what it aimed to do. So yeah, so it did that. And then so I always remember, so I've just been speaking to South Africa, actually. We've just got some really good news from there and hope to release it soon. But I'm going over there soon, and they were just as the planes stopped, and I'm like this. Oh my goodness, how are we going to manage? I hope people go into the Vayne system, but will they? Because there's reluctance, even though they're forced to. And Nolan said, Sarah, these skies have got no planes. Your Vaynes are not coming. So we booked his Vaynes to go out, but he was like, looked up in Johannesburg and went, there's no planes in the sky. So I got the couriers onto it, and because it was medical training, we got it through. And the humans weren't allowed on planes, were they? But the Vaynes were. So we sent in the Vaynes. Sent in he's a Halo centre, sent in a few hundred Vaynes for him, and
that sounds like the pandemic was made for you, really.
Well, that's what I thought. But the thing is, I was also going to Qatar. I just got a contract with Hamad over there, and it was all signed off, and we got the funding and everything. And I was going to go out on the 6th of April. So that would have been both systems, but people like to see you.
Yeah.
So we did actually set off South Africa virtually, but it is going to be absolutely super to go out and work with Gloria with this contract that she's bringing on board.
So what else has the pandemic done for you or done to you?
Well, I think, that you're not going to innovate and bring it. So innovation is one thing. Ideas, we've got loads of ideas. I'm full of them. But I stick to stuff for 10, 20 years. Innovation isn't fast. I watch Gary Vee. You've got to be patient and patience and patience and patience. And what the pandemic did was bring the world to me. So where I was lacking opportunities and things to meet people, because there's no chance you're getting any NHS door. Even if you work with some of the best people that are currently there at the moment, it's just so hard. So that's why I just gave up in the NHS, because it's just too time consuming to get in there, to get to somebody that's actually got a budget and can make decisions. If they come to me, and that's fine. Quality organisations like Guy's and St Thomas's will come to me when they need me, but chasing little doors to open doesn't work. So yeah, it brought leaders for me online, world leaders, world-class leaders, and it also made all the senior people that I could never get near. They're at seminars. So I went on to one webinar and just messaged in it. Got a meeting and got a little pilot and got through and some trials through.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of people who are, I wouldn't say hijacking people, but they're getting people doing things like that, going to as many webinars as they can, not because they're interested in the content, but just who might actually be there. And then, I mean, that's how I find guests for these shows.
Yeah.
Well, not quite, but I have done that in the past, been on innovation groups, and that's how I found Samuel West, the failure man. So yeah, why not?
And I think it's interesting to say about failures as well, because you only get to the innovation through being brave. I'm very brave, but courage is a different thing for me. So being brave, right? Let's try this and see where we go. But courage to keep going when it's really tough. You've got, when you're innovating, and I think that's why we won the showcase in Qatar. So one of 20 in the world with an innovation that has the potential to change healthcare globally. Just, we were there. And, I'll get a cardboard box effectively to Qatar. And, it's all funded, they were lovely. So it's just amazing. But they know it's not about just having an idea. It's how you drive it forward.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that was the big thing that I learned from Sam at the Museum of Failure, was that there are so many people who are saying we need to fail often, and they're the people who just don't get it at all. That they spend so much time trying to fail that, if you try and succeed and you fail and you recover and make that's fine. But the people who make the biggest mistakes, the biggest faux pas, are the people who try and avoid the failure completely, because they haven't got a system in place to recover from it.
Yeah.
And I mean, people like Google, they're making hundreds, if not thousands, of failures every day, but they've got systems in place. And then people like Alan Sugar, latterly his IT company, it failed because of a really, 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 really poor emailing system that he invented. So,
and I think that's the thing is, if you go, and this is what, in fact, there was a talk of Imperial with the Moderna chap. He's linked to some of the networks I'm linked with Imperial, but he was talking about, it was absolutely brilliant talk this. But so talking about, vaccines, which has saved all our lives, hasn't it? So are you still there? Sorry.
Yes, I'm still there. Don't worry.
Around, and I don't know what's happening.
Don't worry.
All right. Okay. Just because last time it went, didn't it? So what was I saying? So yeah. So the Moderna thing, and what happens with innovation, and I always say it's a bit like the iPhone. People that don't understand innovation, people that have got 60 grand jobs, got all the time in the world. Yeah, they're busy, but they'll get the money. Somebody uses a month of my time up, it's gone, and I'm not bringing in revenue or whatever. They'll still get paid or whatever. So, but what people don't understand is that the risk that innovators like me and organizations like me have to take a lot, means that we can make bigger decisions and better decisions for organizations and stuff. So that step, so like the iPhone 1, I always say, well, if you had to go back to the Nokia, and some people say, well, I would, but if I had to go back to the Nokia or an app phone, the iPhone app, or you'd say, well, I either want the 13 or I want the Nokia. Or would you say, well, would I have the one with the apps on it? It's got the apps. Well, you'd have the one, wouldn't you? And the only way they could get to the 13 is by people using it. So actually by people, we've been using the version of this for 10 years before we could afford to do it. So we got the size right, we got loads of things right, but we really struggled with the tubing. How do you get it to stick in? How do you get it to grip? And we went, this is number 20, and these things are a lot of money to produce. The prototypes of these for a cardboard box, you're looking at thousands and thousands of pounds just to be able to get stuff there. So that when I'm talking about mistakes, I'm not talking about customers experiencing that, because my customers don't. I'm talking about the fact that we've spent money on something that, it just doesn't fit right, or it's just a bit out, so those sorts of mistakes. But by the time we've used it enough and we've worked with it, then it's got there. And did I tell you the story of how the flat pack came?
No, I love stories. Please go on.
So I'm in there with, I go to the box. So I said, I need, for the phone version, we're going to see if we can get some funding, get a plastic version, mass produced, or foam light, ship it around the world, because it's nice and light. Plastic, well, that wouldn't have been a good idea, would it? So I went in, so we got this thing appeared, and it was a white version of this. So I'd asked for a box to put the Vayne in, which is similar to this. And what came back was a Vayne. And I looked at it and I said, what's that? So what happened was, and this is what innovation is, we innovated on the standard cutter. So innovation is lots of conversations, as well as trialing it, as well as using it, as well as knowing so much about needles and veins and performance. It's about those conversations that somebody who makes cardboard boxes just assume that why not just use the box? Because you would, wouldn't you, if you make cardboard boxes? So then I was like, that's it. Because it's flat packed, we can get it out. And I never knew that we could make something that would actually functionally work.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Myself included, we all try and have a definition of innovation, and people go on off in these long-winded ones. But I think conversations says it all nicely. So it's conversations with colleagues and peers, conversations with suppliers, conversations with everybody, and you get what I call creative tension or creative friction when people disagree, and then the ideas come out. And it's not about turning any sort of handle. It's about having those conversations. So yeah,
it is. And I think innovation and creativity is at the edge of chaos. So it can't go into chaos, but you've got to be in that place of unknown, and you've got to be comfortable with that, which is why you've got to be brave. You've got to be okay with this unknown when you're innovating a product, not when I'm launching services. I don't want my customers to think, not with my service. But when I'm doing this, you've got to be comfortable with this area, and you've got to be able to manage that tension and that anxiety, and make sure you don't fall into the chaos of it as well.
I like to use the term ambiguity, but there was, I don't know where I read it now. All I know, it was a lady. She kept on referring to chaos, and she said that chaos was okay, but chaotic chaos wasn't. So yeah, I think she's talking about that area where things are bouncing around, but they're not bouncing off out of the window and down the road. It's contained. It's manageable. But yeah.
It's that space. If you can't get in, sometimes you usually find it and you get there. That's why conversations are great and sparking off and things. And you get there, you've got to go, I've got it. And it's that space. I like creative spaces and artistic spaces for that artistic energy, just to walk. Sometimes I walk through a place called Snedton Market just to get that kind of energy, the creative energy that's around there, because they're all creative. And I might be doing a business thing, but just to soak that in. And then I sort of wander off, and my thoughts have changed.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
that sort of chaos, you know, not, you know, where's my VAT return? Where's all those
Although,
there should be a bit here. None of that.
although to an artist, perhaps searching for a VAT return might actually bring some sort of different thought.
Perhaps.
So, and that's the thing. I mean, you know, what is innovation, say, to an artist?
Well, I know, and the thing is, you know, you think, well, artists create and create and create, but they do, and it's they innovate, you know, all the time, and we're not used to that. We reach in, but
But
they,
do they? Is the
well,
is
sometimes no,
Yeah,
sometimes no.
I remember having a long argument, in fact, well, not with artists, because artists get the point when you make it to them, but people who appreciate art, and you say to them, well, artists aren't necessarily creative. Oh, yeah, but they are. They draw and they paint. But if they use the same materials, the same size canvas, paint the same scenes or whatever every time, they're not being creative at all. Now, if you're Damien Hirst and you cut a cow in half and put it in formaldehyde or whatever, then you are. So, yeah.
And I think that's the thing is that business. Well, I love working with business. You know, I've got to do the organizational consultancy, and it's highly creative if you can release that creativity in them. And they don't realize that creating an organization or creating an infrastructure is highly creative. You know, they can see the system and they can move things around. And if they move that and they move that, and then they create a whole different picture, really, that is the organization. And that's just fascinating.
Oh, yes. But just doing the small things. I mean, we were talking the other day about people recording their ideas, and it's so surprising when you suggest things to people, like, you know, writing on walls, or in fact, there was NH NH. I was going to say NHS because you've been working with the NHS. WH Smith is what I actually mean. In Swindon, they had I don't know if they still have it. They used to have what they called an innovation hothouse, and it was tacked on the side of the main offices, and it was built exactly like a sports hall. They had those curtains that you could move down and you could separate them off to play badminton, or when guys were playing cricket or something. So you could separate all the spaces. And the floor was painted black, blackboard black, so you could crawl around on your hands and knees and write with chalk on the floor. They had bean bags. The desks were building blocks with big sheets of glass across the top, and you could just move them around when you felt you needed to be near other people. And that sort of space where you know, where you can lie on the floor and have a cup of coffee, and the boss doesn't tell you off for not doing anything.
To have a leader, and that's what I was saying, when the world leaders, and there's been some amazing ones. I go to one with Dr. Navarro, and it's just an amazing leader.
Yeah.
To see that and to get access to that, because they're all not on planes, are they? Helen Clark's around a bit and stuff from New Zealand, Prime Minister. So you actually get to sort of chat to these people, and they are so like, they are able to allow that top level leader that is empathetic and can allow creativity in front of them, but still keep everybody contained. It's just incredible to see that. So that, yeah.
And have you seen any examples in the UK? He says, tongue in cheek.
Well, our scientists, I did an article before, actually. I think that's where you got this from. But I always, for me, when the world's so dismal as well, I start stalking. Really good, like, you know, leaders. So I'm like, oh, that cheers me up. That cheers me up. So I'll follow I follow some things, humanitarian things like Aurora and stuff. I follow that. That cheers me up. Some wonderful people in the world doing wonderful things. And then some of the scientists. So we've obviously got, you know, Dame Sarah Gilbert, you know, and amazing stuff. And the scientists have just been amazing. And the health, a lot of it's not saying, because it's their daily bread and butter. So I saw a lot on Twitter. Loads of stuff. Like, right, have you got a defib? Have you got a ventilator? Right, we need one in Leeds. And then you've got people joining in. I live in Nottingham and I'm not giving our ventilator to Leeds. Meanwhile, you know, obviously Joe blogs. And it's like amazing that they took to Twitter and they used that, and they used everything and opened things up to see that. So we saw leadership like I've never seen it before. It was there. It was like walking through A&E in a major incident. It was amazing.
I can't say I know what A&E in a major incident's like, and I
Yeah.
don't want to find out either. So,
Very quiet, actually.
Yeah, these days there's often a TV crew somewhere about, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, maybe for instance, you could hear a pin drop on some of them because everybody's so focused.
Yeah, I can imagine. So now you've got your Vayne in a box. What's next? What's in? Are there things in the pipeline? I'd be surprised if there wasn't, but.
Well, I think for me, it's going to be helping the Halo centres get this out there. So nipping out to South Africa and with them, so supporting those leaders, local leaders. So it is leadership again, isn't it? It's implementation. It's using a masters. It's applying that in practice. We've got a 17-year practice theory gap, research practice gap. So research comes out, takes 17 years till we actually get it embedded. 17 years. So how do we kind of deal, what do we do about that? So I suppose I'm more about the thinking, but flat pack training,
There's a lot you can train, isn't there?
There's loads of precision skills,
yeah.
Loads of bits. I know how it works. I know how to do it. It's eyes.
Yeah.
Pop in an eye. All sorts.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about you talking about the skills gap, because there's something that I talk about which is not quite like that, but which is I talk about innovation being a human race, and we have us generally in the West as athletes in quotes. We've got our flash running gear, our nice posh Nike shoes, our nice shiny gear. We've got all the best training, and we're away running. And the people in the third world countries, like my friends in India, some of the people I know in Africa, they're all way behind, wearing their flappy shorts and looking very forlorn. And at this point, people go, I'm not sure about that. But the point is, I find those people in the flappy shorts, they might not have the gear, but they can run faster than we can. So depending on the length of the race, they're going to catch up and overtake. And that's where I think some of the opportunities are, because of the resistance in Europe and in some cases the US or whatever, but it's mainly in Europe that I find people in South America, people in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly people in India and other parts of Asia, they have that ability to sort of leapfrog.
Totally.
And it's like in Africa, but they didn't use landline phones. They went straight to mobile.
Yeah.
So they will leapfrog some of these technologies and their ways of thinking. And overtake. And in fact, in your area, in healthcare, they're not actually beating us. They're just helping themselves to be a better country using products that we could be using, but aren't.
Well, I think the thing is that I love Africa. It's my thing. I just love it. I went for 2 months, took off with the kids for 2 months. I was on my own, widowed, for 2 kids. And so when they were about 4 and 5 and 7 or something, I can't remember, we went for a month and stayed 2. A friend of mine lives out there. But over there, the vets take the blood. And I was like, oh, this is wrong. So that was like, how do I get this stuff out here? How do I get this training out here? We had the foam one then, but it wasn't. It's like, oh, yeah. Because actually, and they're up for it because they haven't got this. Well, where's the iPhone 13? That's what I expect. It's, oh, maybe I could help and we'll do this with it. We'll do an one now. And that's the whole thing about the flat pack. It's collaboration. There's no point me building an Vayne type thing, Vayne precision holder, flat pack training. You need to work with an ophthalmologist, and you need to work with anaesthetists potentially as well, and all sorts of people to create that. So we learn what I know, what they know, and it has to create. And Africa's so collaborative. And you just look around, like you're saying. I used to look around, and the things they would just make. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Oh yeah.
so innovative, much more innovative. They're just naturally innovative. Just get
Yeah.
things sorted and get on the bike and use the bike as 3 jobs. It's doing 3 jobs while they're cycling somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I used to find in Africa that they would find interesting solutions to problems. I mean, I've seen very young children change truck tires just with a bowl of soapy water and a few levers. So they would find new ways of doing it.
mm,
But in India, I found they would invent new things. You
oh,
know, machines to make dosas and things like this. I mean, I don't know if you come across this. They have a thing out there called Jugad, which basically means hacking. And if you look it up on the internet, you find all sorts of videos about things that they've invented just to solve problems, and it's fantastic. So yeah,
and I think that's it. But innovation comes from that pressure point and from that frustration, and it's like coal and diamonds and the pressure and it just kind of comes and I always say it's kind of burst out of me, this Vayne, because watching these people and struggling and things, and it has to come from that place. That's why people that copycat don't do so well, because they don't know why you exactly did something with it, because you've been
exactly. Yeah,
so they can copycat, but it'll fail because of this, that, and the other. But they don't know what you're doing next because there's a little thing with it that you're going to change. There's that sort of stuff.
yeah,
And I think that it's that tension and that feeling of Gary Vee talks about that kind of Vaynerchuk, that feeling of just sitting with that tension and not getting cross and furious. Sometimes you can feel furious that you're still in a situation. Why is it okay? Why is it okay to have 22 needle sticks in a weekend? Friend of mine. Why is that okay? Just to get a cannula in. And then you speak to them and you ask them stuff and clearly just didn't know how to hold it and look on YouTube. They don't know how to hold the equipment, how to do stuff. Now, go to Africa and they'll be thrilled to bits that they're going to save one cannula. One cannula. So I'll show you how to do it. We'll reuse this one loads. They'll keep reusing it and protect it for that training device. Here it's like throw it away. Let's do another. Let's start fresh. No, let's use this again. Let's practice until we've really mastered it. And then we'll go to the fake arm, maybe, or straight to a patient, but you'll know what you're doing with it.
yeah.
And I think they're up for that in Africa and places like that. They're more, they're not they're keen to do better with what they've got available and save those resources.
Yeah, I don't know why I've got this vision of one of your little boxes with an eyeball in it, with training people to do cataracts or something like that. Because a lot of them seem to rely on sort of Médecins Sans Frontières types going over there and doing an intensive month or something.
They do. Well, the Flying Eye Hospital got, and I spoke to them a little bit, but the Flying Eye Hospital in Qatar as well. It's a hospital that's an aeroplane, and it got grounded, and it was devastating. But what they did was they did train people. So often people use fruit or something like that. Seeing loads of veg on the surgeons were sending out stuff so they could rest cameras in and learn how to do scope surgery, and they were using like bananas and stuff. But sometimes fruit's really expensive.
Yeah. I know this. The surgeons with their robots, they like to work on peeling things like oranges, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and onion skins and stuff like that and stuff. So sometimes it is useful to use stuff like that, but other times it's literally about how they control these hands with the head while they're looking at something and really focusing. And that's where we come in, because that is repetition, performance, and analyzing it with the phone. So if you've got 5 different types of oranges, you can't analyze it. Whereas if you've got one cardboard box with something in it to allow precision, it holds something so you can precision do it, and you can video it and go, oh, touch that. Because they use it in elite athletes, they use it with sports. That's where we've got some of the idea for the video.
And of course you could also make, I suppose, slightly different types, so eyeballs that are harder to cut into or something like that. Because it's all repeatable. So from a quality point of view, you can see, oh, this guy's okay, but he has trouble with a grade 5 eyeball or something like that.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
So in the software for the football and cricket, I've been speaking to a former performance analyst for cricket, and you know, the precision, you're looking at tiny movements alongside. So they've got coding in these things where they code it in, and that's, I'd love to do that. So you code in when someone's slightly moving the cannula, because it's just precision control, and then they can see that as data, not somebody's expert opinion picking.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you're being a bit picky. I'll be all right once I've done a few more. And then if you can get people to watch their own video and get data, objective data analysis, look, at that point there, you were 10 seconds too early with that precision.
Yeah.
Then they can really learn and engage and practice again, because it is boring. To practice is boring.
Yeah, I must admit, I think I'd forget the practice. I'd be sticking needles in all over the place, and then once I'd got it right, I wouldn't know why I'd got it right. So,
well, this is what happens, and that's why we've got all these things. So it's trying to correct. You asked earlier, trying to get the people that have been doing it wrong. You're actually dealing with shame there. If you look at psychodynamic stuff, you've got to get through that barrier of shame, because these are good people. They've not necessarily been shown. They've not intended. And we get people. We get surgeons coming on our courses, and we know one because Peter was a patient, and he went, oh, but he could put enough fantastic cannula in Peter, you know, because it's popped into A&E and Peter was a patient, and there's this guy that we taught, you know, it's like, you're on a course. But sometimes they might not say, there might be a little bit of embarrassment that they're a senior doctor-ish, senior-ish, SHO or reg type thing, or even a surgeon asked to go on the course because they hadn't done cannulas for 20 years, didn't really need to, and felt like really they want to do it properly. Even though they're amazing with their hands, amazing. But, you know, they could still muck up the cannula, get an infection to the bloodstream. And I just think I really get impressed with people like that, don't you?
Yeah, well, I'm glad to know next time I go in hospital, there may or may not be somebody who can stick a cannula in properly. I must admit, I've never, ever had problems with a cannula, only with when I've been... Usually when I've been going to give blood at the doctor's.
Yeah, I know.
Or, we've got a drive-through phlebotomy service here in Sheffield, and then the nurses there are absolutely brilliant. They could find a vein in a haystack, not a problem. But the doctor, you know, they're prodding, and you come out with big bruises and needle marks, and horrible. You
can imagine what it's like for me when my children get blood taken, or it's quite painful. I've got to, you know, manage myself, but you know, it's quite short sometimes. But when I get somebody that's really good, I think, have we trained them? Because you don't see it, you hardly see it. You hardly see the correct practice happening.
Yeah. So where's the next big market then? What's the... you're hitting the Middle East and Southern Africa. So which other country are you going to take over?
Well, India is obviously an interesting area, really. The States, I've got a lot of following on the States on the newsletters, and they're triggering quite high, the Americans. So there's obviously a market pulling us that way. But with American, probably because our Vayne lets them do it their own way, because it's like everybody likes to do something slightly different. And that's actually okay. Everyone's all doing the same in that hospital. It's okay. And they can get quite fierce. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing it our way.
Yeah.
So there's a little QR that can be theirs, and then they can put their own videos on. So that means that, you know, so it will be, but that means that the system has got to be able to be adapted and built contents for the States and stuff. So yeah, I think the States, and obviously there's animals as well. They have veins. So I was sort of thinking, I'm trying to think about sort of fur, the look. That's going to be fun, isn't it? Speaking to Rob, the designer. Rob, we need some fur. That's his arm. He couldn't get a picture online, so he took a picture of his arm. He's got great veins.
If he's got a dog, I would say to the dog, watch out.
Exactly. I took the dog in. I've got this cute pug. You know, pugs are funny, aren't they?
Yeah.
This Puggalea, so she's pugging a King Charles, very pretty. And when she was a puppy, I've got this strap on Vayne, so you strap it on I know. So I thought, I'll do this for fun. And it was some senior people in there. It's when we're all opening classrooms. I strapped this thing onto the dog, this cute, adorable puppy, as if they were going to have to inject into it. These are people, some of them have been practicing, they haven't had much training, but they've gone and they've come on because they think they could do it a bit better, and they do learn loads. Went in and I went, okay, now you're going to practice on a moving object. It was so funny because they were like, we're not going near a puppy. Can't go near a puppy. But they go near a patient. I said, this is my point. We have people that literally will have a little look at a cannula, pick it up, and just go straight to a patient. We should be seeing them like puppies if we treated them as well as our puppies.
Yeah, true. Well, time has been flying amazingly quickly, but before we let you go and do all the things that you need to do in an afternoon, what's that biggest? What is the biggest thing that? It's terrible to think of one, I suppose, but the biggest thing you've learned trying to innovate. What have you learned that's either been good, or what have you learned that's been bad and you've had to overcome? Or maybe one of each. What's the biggest obstacle and the biggest, I don't know, what's the opposite of obstacle? Good thing.
Well, the obstacle is, and the hardest thing is, you've got to tolerate your own frustration. I can see the equivalent of an iPhone 13. So I can see VR with this.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at this, I'm seeing VR headsets and extravasation injuries and sensory touch and stuff. If I say that to customers, they'll go, oh, wait for that then. So, and it'll never get there because we need to keep using it, not even for the revenue, but to keep using it to figure out in what way is VR going to work with a cardboard box. So it's that frustration of, and then people thinking that, oh, well, if you just did that, it'd be fine. You'd be a multi-zillionaire, right? Because that's not how businesses work. It's just really hard work. And I think the best bit, it's when people get you. It's just great, when people get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one chap who just went like this. Oh my goodness, this is going to be everywhere. And he worked for a cannula company. He's left that cannula company now, sadly, because I think it would have been everywhere via them. But we're with another cannula company now, so that's good. But that's the way to do it, is to get it through them. So it's that kind of when somebody gets it, they see that they're not just simplistic minded. They can see it in Africa. They can see it in the wards. They can see that when we bring product in, they can see cell dinger technique. They start to see their own things. Oh, could put an eyeball in it or whatever. They start to do things with it. I get really excited. I love that.
Yeah. But that's, in a way, though, that's partly down to you, because that's one of my idea tests for a good idea. Do people get it? If they get it, then you're most of the way there.
I think
So yeah. Well, in fact, there we go. If anybody who's watching, either now or repeat, wants to get in touch with Sarah, as if by magic.
Look at that.
I know. If you want to find out about VeinTrain, you can even look up Sarah on LinkedIn. She's there. She's I was going to say unmissable, but I mean that in the nicest possible way. So if you want to get hold of Sarah or look at VeinTrain, that's the place to go.
Superb. Thank you. How slick are you?
Well, I try my best, but not everybody thinks so. So anyway, thanks for coming along today. It's been a fabby chat, and hopefully it won't be too long before our paths cross again.
I hope not. When I get the VR going, I'll be getting you to put a headset on.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's been a blast. Well, that's it. There will be a replay of this in the next week or so, and I'll be back in a fortnight with more Business Jam live. So bye for now. Thanks for watching.